TWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over.
Negative. We don't want to report.
Aries 31, do you wish to report a UFO? Over.
Negative. We want to report one of those either.
Aries 31, do you wish to file a report of any kind? Over.
I wouldn't know what kind of report to file, sir.
Aries 31, me neither.
071 Papa Golf, go ahead.
And there was anybody above us that passed us like 30 seconds ago?
071 Papa Golf, negative.
Okay. Something. A UFO. Yeah. It's American 1095. Yeah, something just passed over us. Like don't know what it was, but it's at least 2,000-3,000 feet above us. So yeah, it passed right over the top of us.
911, you guys busy? We just called about some UFOs this time. They're out there, taking airplanes.
County Dispatch.
Okay.
Bob, I swear to God, 4 calls in on an unidentified object over Liberty.
4 calls.
4 calls on an unidentified flying object.
All right, now take a look. All right, we'll check it out.
Welcome to UFO Chronicles, a place where people share their experiences of the strange and unexplained. If you've had an encounter and would like to be on the show, you can email me at ufochronicles@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to the podcast, everyone. Wherever in the world you are joining us from, I hope you're all doing okay. I'm Nick Hunter and you're listening to UFO Chronicles Podcast. Tonight we meet Chad from California, and Chad will be sharing an encounter with something that would visit his house for several consecutive nights. He would hear what sounded like wings, and then it would land on his roof. He initially dismissed it at first as being some sort of critter like an owl. He realised this thing was huge, like the weight of a man, and could hear the distinct sound of 3 sharp claws. Then it would enter his house. Chad up next. If you enjoy listening to the podcast and would like to help support my work, there is a couple of ways to do this. Either you can join Patreon and become a patron of the show for as little as $5 a month, or you can donate via PayPal. And if you like, you can set up monthly reoccurring payments. All links to support the podcast are below in the show notes and on the website. Any help is extremely appreciated, and it helps the show to continue running. Now, on with the show. Hello, Chad. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for coming on today, and you're calling from California.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, now, Chad, you're going to be sharing your experiences. Would you like to start at the very beginning, please?
Okay. I think something has just kind of come to the forefront of my mind recently. So I'll start with a dream I had when I was maybe 6 or 7. I only remember seeing a giant metal ball above my head, and it was like I was falling away from it. And then I woke up, and I was really scared. And I remember telling my mom about it. And I think sometime later I had another dream where I was in the ocean and I was surfing, and where I lived at the time, I had never been to the ocean, nor was I even remotely close to it. I was on a surfboard in the water, and underneath me was like this huge, massive metal ball is what my brain told me. I couldn't, it didn't make sense to me as a kid. I didn't have any reference for it or anything like that. So fast forward to a situation that happened in summer of 2018. I was working nights at LAX airport, and I had some time off. I'm a union heavy equipment operator, so our work is up and down most of the time. And I was laying in bed. My wife was asleep next to me, and I had the TV on, but very low. I heard something land on the roof of our house, and it was just large. And this would happen for about 4 or 5 nights after this. And when I first heard it, I just thought maybe it was an owl or, a hawk or something like that. And the area I lived in was in Long Beach, California. And it was, there were lots of trees and lots of water sources all around the place. So, big birds really never seemed out of the question. And usually I would hear this, and then it's weird and strange because I would hear it and then go back to maybe watching TV, or I would wake up the next morning and not think anything of it. And about on the 5th night, I started to realize that this thing was coming back to my house every night at like 12 o'clock midnight, every single night. And I was able to like sit there at 11:59 and go, okay, one more minute, it's going to be up there. And sure enough, like clockwork, that thing was on the roof, and it was directly above my head. So the bedroom portion of my roof. And the house we lived in was built in the 50s. So the walls were thin, had single pane windows. If somebody was talking out on the street, I could hear the entire conversation. And they didn't need to be yelling. It could just be a normal volume conversation. So this thing on the roof obviously was quite loud and prominent. So I had talked to my mom about what I was experiencing, and she said, well, talk to it. Maybe you should ask it what it wants. And at first I was skeptical about doing that. But then I thought, okay, it's been like 5 days, and nothing more than it just kind of standing up there, maybe shuffling around a little bit. I kind of just said, screw it. Let's see what it's all about. So this particular night I was laying there, and I hear the whoosh of large wings. And it kind of startled me because, again, here we are at 12 o'clock midnight, and I hear the whoosh, and then I hear what sounds like the weight of a grown man. I'm 6 foot tall, 210 pounds. I'm not a small guy. So it sounded like I was on the roof. And this time I don't know if, I'm not sure if this was happening every night, that this creature or whatever it was landing on the roof. I can only assume that it was the same thing. When it touched down, like I said, it sounded like a man up there, and it took a step, or like to reposition its footing. And when it set its foot down, I could hear 3 distinctive, sharp claws hit the roof one at a time. And so I thought, okay, it's definitely a bird, a big bird, but it's a bird. It then took its next step, and I thought, okay, it's moving and it's really big. So then I start going through my mind and thinking, what the hell could be that large and be that heavy? I've never heard anything like that around here before. And so I'm confused, and it took another step, and then another. And each time its foot would land, I could hear the 3 distinctive claws hit the roof one at a time. And now as it's walking, I can hear and feel the weight of this thing each step it took. The next thing I noticed was its stride. Its stride was about the same as mine. my house at the time had wood floors, and the floors were raised up off of the foundation. So each step you took in the house had a thud and an echo, and, the wood would creak. And this is happening above my head. And I'm thinking, holy shit, what the hell is going on up there? And I started to think like maybe it's a person, but there's no way, based on the sound of these footsteps and how it was moving. The stride just blew me away. And it moved over to the other side of the room, onto the left side of me. And I just sat in bed and I thought, okay, let's see what it wants. And in my mind, I just thought, what do you want? And no sooner than I let that thought go, I now hear the claws coming down the wall of my bedroom. And it sounded like the feet were like digging into the wall and stepping down the wall one at a time, like it was moving down a ladder. And as it made its way through, it landed on the floor. Now, this whole time, oddly, I'm not scared. I'm not thinking. It was really odd. It was like my mind was blank and I was totally in shock. And I couldn't think of anything to say or how to engage this thing, but I now realize it's in the room. And it literally just like walked right through the roof of my house and scaled the wall and is now standing in the corner of my room. So my next thought, it stood there and didn't move until I interacted with it again. And I thought, okay, if you're really standing over there, the only thing I can think of was my bedroom door was open. I said, go move the bedroom door. And it started to walk. I could hear each step as it walked, and I could feel a presence. It was like if you're standing in a room and your eyes are closed and someone walks in, there's a person there. You may not know exactly where they are, but you know that you're not alone. And this is how I felt. And no sooner than I realized I'm not alone and that there is something over there, the door handles of this house were old and they jiggled. They're metallic. And it was like it pushed the door handle and the door just so gently hit the wall and bounced back. And I could see the door move. I maybe 8 feet away from it. It was not far. And so it's not completely dark in the room either. The TV was on and it was lighting up the room pretty significantly. So I could hear it, I could see it, and I could feel it. Then I was really shocked. But now I'm a little bit excited because I'm thinking, well, this is cool. There's something there. And I'm not afraid. So I then ask it to walk down the hallway and touch another door or push another door open. And it walked down to my son's room, which was about 50 feet at the end of the hall. When you're in a house with wood floors, you tend to know like where every creak and crackle of the wood is when you step on it. And especially if you got kids and you're trying to be quiet when they're sleeping. So I hear this thing make its way down the hallway, and it lumbered along. Like it walked like it didn't have a care in the world, and it was just there to do what I asked it to do. It made its way down to my son's bedroom. And again, same exact door handle as mine, same kind of door. And this time I hear the door a little bit louder bounce off of the wall as it was pushed open. And I thought, okay, whatever this is, it's really here. And I'm thinking, why can't I see it? And it starts to walk back down the hallway towards my room. As it walks into the room, I feel its presence again. And I can't see anything. I know some people say they see a shimmer or smoke or something like that. I don't see any of that, but I can sense, like my mind is painting a picture of this thing that's just a few feet away from me. And it makes its way next to my wife, gets to the edge of the bed, and it starts walking across the foot of my bed. And as it walks, I can just, I get the sense, I heard the wings when it landed on the roof. So I know that it has wings. I know that it's at least my height because of its stride. I know that it's heavy. It's probably bigger than me. And it felt like maybe it was very muscular, like it was large. It slowly walked around the edge of my bed near my feet. And now it's, 5 feet away from me, and it continues to walk, and it takes its time. It's very patient, and it gets close to me and it stops. It's about 3 feet away from me, maybe less, the arm's length. It just stands, and now I really get the sense of its full width and height, and it's just this big, large thing standing in front of me. And I still, at this point, I can't think of anything to say or to ask it or to do. It's, for lack of a better term, I was kind of frozen. I could move, but I was just in complete shock that there was something there. Where it stopped, it bent over, and it craned its head down slowly, but with purpose. And I'm looking right at it, and it's second by second closer and closer and closer until its face was almost nose to nose with me. I had this sensation that it had a very round head, like a basketball. I don't know why, but it maybe just because it felt so big and wide. And as soon as it got that close, my body went into like a whirlwind of emotion and fear and shock. And it was like, get the hell out of here. Like, this is not safe. And I slowly, I like peeled myself away from it and rolled over towards my wife. And I don't know why this happened, but I instantly thought, you're not welcome here. This is a house of God. And no sooner than that thought exited my mind, I had a back door that was maybe 60 feet away from my room. The door had that jiggly handle, just like my bedroom. And the door to get into the house in the back had a landing that was maybe a foot shorter than the door itself. So when I stood at the door, and if I wasn't able to open it smoothly, my shoulder would bump into the door. And it had like 8 or 12 small 1 foot by 1 foot window panes in the door. So you can hear a thud and a bump, and the handle jiggled really loud. As soon as I had this thought of, get out of here, you're not welcome here, I can hear the door shaking violently, and it sounded like somebody's shoulder was being pushed into the door as they're trying to get back in. And it continued for about 30 seconds. And the whole time I'm listening and going, am I really hearing this right now? And I decide to wake my wife up. And so I'm she's not usually, she is a light sleeper. I mean, a brisk wind will wake her up. And my wife, I'm shaking her and I'm saying, wake up. And she's not coming to. All the while, I can still hear the shaking and the pounding of the door and the door handle and the glass. And I'm thinking, this thing is like pissed, like it's not happy at all. And I finally, my wife kind of like groggily opens her eyes and says, what? And I go, be quiet, listen. And as soon as she quieted down, as soon as I was quiet, it stopped. I asked her, I said, did you hear that? And she's like, I didn't hear anything. What are you talking about? So I said, I go, there was just something in the house, and it was here next to me. I tried to explain to her what happened, and she laughed at me. She said that I watched too many conspiracy theories or alien shows or something like that. And I just thought, like, this was nothing like any of that. This was different. And it's important to know that at the time, I was not a religious man, and I still, I don't consider myself religious. I think anybody that's had an experience like this would probably say they're more spiritual. So that's kind of where I land on that whole topic. During this time, my wife and my kids were attending church for, I don't know, maybe 5 years off and on without me. I didn't feel like it was for me, and I elected to not go. My wife had not always, but frequently would ask me to come along, and I would politely decline. And so for me to have that thought of like, this is a house of God, it was an involuntary response, but it came from deep within inside me, and it was liberating. At that moment, I felt like something happened. The tide had changed or something like that. Like there was just something different inside of me. So my wife didn't believe me. The next day I was at work. I had a couple of friends that I could talk to about stuff like this, and a brother. I have a brother that I work with, and I shared it with him and with these other fellows, and they all kind of were, shocked, and they thought like, really, I don't know, that doesn't sound right, and some of them would say, well, I could see if you saw a UFO, maybe, but like an invisible being in your room, I don't know. So I know a lot of people that have these encounters. I've heard on your show, it feels good to let this out and to share it. It does. So the next thing that I encountered, I was with my family a few months later, and we were in a place called Newport Beach at Balboa Island, and you can drive your car onto a ferry, and they take you across the channel onto the island. So we're all together, and we're out of our car, and we're taking pictures, and we're just standing there having a good old time. And all of a sudden, I have this moment where this light and warmth and love, compassion, everything good you can think of in the world engulfed my entire body. I could see light everywhere, even though my eyes were open and I was outside and it was daytime. It was different. It was a different kind of light, something that came from within. Sorry.
It's okay, man. Take your time.
I can't explain it. I raced motorcycles when I was younger, and my goal was to be a professional. And one day I was, and I got to ride in a stadium full of people, and it's all I ever wanted since I was a kid. That feeling didn't even measure up halfway to what I experienced on that ferry. At that moment, when I had that experience, I felt like I made a choice back in the bedroom. I felt like I was being rewarded for my choice and being told that I made the right choice. So it was right then I decided I'm going to go to church with my family. And when the next time my wife was getting ready to go, I said, hey, don't forget me. I'm coming with you. And she couldn't believe it. She was excited. My kids were excited. I was excited. I get to church, and my first time there, I'm a little uncomfortable. And the pastor is preaching about coincidence. And she says, let's assume for a moment here that there are no coincidences in this world. And what you perceive as coincidence is actually God speaking to you. And it just like a bell rang through my whole body. And it made sense to me. My whole life, I've had weird coincidence happen where, I could be talking to somebody or about a TV show or a movie that I love. And that day I'll turn the TV on and there it is. It's on. It's just starting. It was like it was put there for me to see. I could be thinking about somebody, and that day, the next day, the person would call me. It could be somebody I hadn't spoken to in a year. Just really odd coincidence and synchronicities that would pop up throughout my life. And at that moment, standing there in church, it just made sense. Like, it all kind of put things in a different perspective for me. Oh, I should also tell you guys that before I had the experience in my bedroom, I had been listening to a couple other podcasts, and there was a reoccurring theme that I kept picking up out of different shows. And, the theme was if you want to have interaction or contact, you need to have love in your heart and open your mind and not be afraid. So I know some people were probably thinking if something came into their room, they'd be scared shitless. But I was in the state of mind where I wanted this to happen, and I wanted to see, I wanted to experience something. And so I did. I definitely did. The second day I go to church, or the second week, I should say, the pastor is speaking about being touched by the light of God. And she's talking about the different, or not different, but about the ways that people experience being touched by God and stuff like that. It immediately my body just started vibrating, resonating with what she was saying. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, that has happened to me. And I go, that's why I'm here. And afterward, I told the pastor all that, and she told me that I was very lucky and that obviously he chose me for a reason. And it just kind of stuck with me that, like I said, I made a choice, and not for 1 second do I regret it.
The Fortean Film Festival is a new celebration of cinema, created by people who have a passion for all things weird and paranormal. The current season is now open for submissions. Get involved if you're a filmmaker that has a penchant for poltergeists and adores aliens, or if you're a producer devoted to demonology with a soft spot for sci-fi. The deadline for submissions to this IMDb-approved festival is fast approaching. Go to www.forteanfilmfestival.com to submit your film or buy tickets, if you dare.
About 2 or 3 months down the road from those first couple of times at church, I'm now back working a normal schedule. I'm working during the day. I'm leaving for work at like 4 a.m. There's nobody outside. It's still dark. And my truck was parked a couple blocks away from my house on the street. And I decided to walk down the street, and any chance I get, I'm looking up at the sky. I'm always looking, daytime, nighttime, doesn't matter. If I go out to take the trash out, I stand out there for 5 extra minutes and just look around. As I'm walking down the street, I walk past a street light, and as I am about 10 feet past the street light, I'm actually walking in the middle of the street. I'm not sure why I chose to walk in the middle of the street. And I also happened to be looking up and to the left. And again, if you take the coincidence out of it, and one could say that I was supposed to be walking in the middle of the street and supposed to be looking up and to the left. And no sooner than I passed that light, I'm looking above the roof of a 2-story home. And for about 5 seconds, I see an egg-shaped craft that looked like it had lava, is the only way I can describe it. It was light, but it moved and fluctuated like an old school lava lamp. And the lava portion of it was like at the back. But this craft was flying unbelievably fast, faster than anything I've ever seen. And it just so happens that where I'm walking is a flight path for the Long Beach airport, and planes are flying across this area, this street, day and night. I mean, they don't stop. So I'm used to seeing aircraft in the sky. This object was maybe no more than 100 or 200 feet above the roof of these houses, and it was flying parallel with the ground, with the houses. I was shocked, and I was excited, and I was like, I can't believe I just saw that. That was amazing. I saw it for about 4 seconds. It almost seemed as if it allowed me to see it. Like it was like it popped into existence and then it popped out. That's how fast it was moving. And I know it was flying because I saw it, move in a forward direction. And its trajectory was like headed out towards the ocean to like Mexico area. It was going south. So I get in my truck and I write it all down. Like as soon as I got there, I wrote everything down. And I just kind of hung on to that. I have a son who's 10. So when I got home, and it was strange because I wanted to scream it from the rooftops that I saw this, but it wasn't for a few more days when I went, oh shit, I forgot about that. And I wrote it down. So I brought it into the house to show my son, and he was excited, and he's like, oh, Dad, you really saw that? I said, yeah. Well, unbeknownst to me, he stuck it in his backpack and took it to school. A few months later, we're at a meeting with his teachers and counselor and principal and stuff like that. And my wife wasn't quite there yet, so I was sitting and waiting. And the teacher looked at me and said, so I heard you saw a UFO. And I about died. I mean, I'm melted in my seat, and I couldn't believe that this lady knew this. That means my son went to school and he told everybody. And she goes, oh, he was so excited to show me. And I'm sitting at a table with 5 other people, professional people, mind you. And they all turned and looked at me with excitement and were like, I can't believe you saw that. I want to see one. So some other person said that they've seen one. And they just started asking me questions, and that feeling of dread left me. And I was excited, and I felt accepted. I didn't feel like I was being ostracized or looked down upon. And it was refreshing because I was not expecting that at all. My wife came back into the room, and they kind of we kind of told her about what we were talking about, and she just kind of blew it off. Oh yeah, that's him. He's into all that. And it bothered me that, my own wife doesn't believe me. And so I said, okay, that's fine. You don't need to believe me. I believe me, and I know what I saw, and that's good enough for me. So earlier this year, that craft I saw, the egg, was in 19, maybe March or April. And then just about maybe 2 months ago, we had this incredible full moon on a Friday night. And our church, we have service on Friday nights so that people can maybe make it there a little easier. And we're doing it outside too in the parking lot. So I'm sitting watching the moon rise, and it's moving through the trees and moving above the horizon and all this stuff. And by the time church is over, it's been an hour and a half, and the moon is now maybe at the 10 o'clock position or 11 o'clock position in the sky. And our house is in the direction away from the moon. So we make our way home, and I'm telling my kids, look at the moon, like it's beautiful. And it was kind of yellowish and very bright, and it was very low in the sky. It was huge. It was incredible. I mean, you could see all the detail on it with your naked eye. I mean, it was awesome. And we turn onto our street. My son is sitting behind me. I'm driving. My wife next to me, and my daughter is 6, and she's sitting behind my wife. We pull onto the street, and my son says something to my wife, and it draws my wife's attention back to him. I am looking down the street, and there are apartment buildings on the left and to the right of us on either side of the street. As I am getting a little further into the street, an orangish yellow globe, maybe the size of a basketball, drops in over the roof of one of these apartment buildings, and it drops down into the street in front of me. It's maybe 100 feet, no more than 150 feet away from me. It's probably 30 or 40 feet off of the ground. And as it moves across the street, it had this huge yellow-orange tail coming off of it. It was like, I mean, I guess if I don't know how to describe it other than it was just a tail of light. And I thought, okay, it's just moving so fast that it's streaking. And as it crossed me, I could see that the center of it was maybe hollow or transparent, because it looked like I could see the nighttime sky through it. And it went across the street so fast, it banked up against a second-story window, shot back out into the middle of the street, and then kind of banked right again and flew out over to the ocean. My house is about a mile from the water. So it just, as soon as I saw it, I just screamed, look, look, look. And everybody kind of got startled in the car, and they all turned. But by the time they turned around, it had shot out of existence out towards the ocean that fast, with all in a matter of 4 or 5 seconds. And I go, did you guys see that? And no, nothing. I got crickets. And what'd you see? And so I explained it. And I mean, I was amped up. I was excited. This is the third encounter I've had, and it's not something that I've seen before or even knew about. I mean, I know about orbs and stuff, but it didn't register in my brain that that's what I could be looking at. So this thing just shoots out across the water, whatever, it's gone. And my wife, again, reluctant to believe. My son now is saying, yeah, Dad, sure, I bet you saw another UFO, Dad. And my daughter, we start driving down the street. I'm thinking, oh, let's go find it. And my daughter, she goes, I believe you, Daddy. If you saw it, then I believe that you saw it. So that kind of made me feel good. But I just, it's hard to make people, you can't make anybody believe anything. They need to see it for themselves. And I think having an open mind and open heart and not being afraid, it's drawn to us, it's attracted to us. And some people are more sensitive than others. So I've heard and been told. It wasn't until just recently here, I was listening to a podcast. And since all this has happened, I'm like, I only listen to a couple podcasts, but I'm listening a couple times a week. So I'm learning a lot about all this stuff and how it all is kind of structured and laid out. And I mean, nobody has a definite, explanation as to why or how all this happens. But the one thing that I keep hearing a lot is that people that are sensitive and have an open mind and an open heart and aren't afraid, they're the ones who get to see it. And I've always thought, the universe is too big for there not to be other life out there. It's kind of stupid to think, that we're it. So that's never made sense to me. I mean, maybe these things are from another world. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're from here. Maybe it's something that we're doing to the earth, just being here, destroying it. Maybe that's some kind of a mechanism or protocol that, starts happening to straighten things out. I'm not sure, but it wasn't until recently that I heard something about abductions on your podcast, about people that have had these dreams when they were kids about, floating up to the ceiling or, moving out of their bedroom, having shadowy figures in the room, which when I was a kid, that was also something else that I would see is dark figures in the corner, which, I mean, I think most kids see that. I mean, I don't think it's too out of the ordinary. But when I started to piece together the dreams I had as a boy with those brown objects and floating or falling away from them and then waking up in my bed, now having this stuff, I'm aware of it. I wonder if maybe this stuff's been happening to me all my life, and now I'm just kind of waking up to it. So that's kind of where I'm at now, and I'm anticipating any other visitations or sightings or anything else to come my way.
You did great, man. Thank you.
It's a little tough, it's hard to talk about, and not for a bad reason, but it just, I'm emotional about it, and it's involuntary. It's not something that I'm doing. It just comes out of me.
Yeah, and that can be the natural reaction. When you were, at the teacher-parent meeting and you were sat down and then you were kind of waiting to see what their reaction was going to be. But instead it was the opposite, which is good, which is always good. And in your case of your wife, sometimes people need to actually have the experience before they can kind of accept it, because it is something which is difficult to accept, especially if it hasn't happened to you. You really need to have some blind faith to be able to trust someone on what they're saying. Sometimes,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's my new blind faith, if you will, is there was definitely something in my room, and it was invisible to the naked eye. It moved through my ceiling like it opened a porthole and just walked in. I have no problem saying that there is a God, a creator, an almighty. Now I know for sure that we're not alone here, and that can look like whatever you want it to look like. But we are definitely not alone. We're probably, good things and bad things are probably happening to a lot of us, and we're not aware of it. But I don't think we have as much control as most of us think we do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a particularly religious person, but I do have a respect for it. And I know, there is good and there is bad. During that time when you'd have this entity visit you, and that was over 3 or 4 consecutive nights?
Looking back on it now, it feels like it was 2 weeks. But yeah, it was for like the first 5 nights. To my knowledge, it never came in the house. But it was, and I wasn't engaging it, and it wasn't until I engaged it that something happened, and it was almost instantly that it came in.
And before that, did something happen in your life to thrown you off the rails or change the direction or something?
My wife and I were having some issues in our marriage. And at the time we weren't getting along too well. So I know that was an issue, but other than that, there was nothing else. There was no trauma or, issue that cropped up to change my life. Like, it was just something that I don't know, it just happened. I think it was because of the way I started thinking. I started to question everything and just say how I'm going to have an open mind. And I changed my thinking.
Like a test. So it's like this thing came to you as a test to see how you would react and maybe even which path you would go down.
To me, that's kind of how it felt. Yeah. And it wasn't until afterward that I, standing on the ferry, that I realized that what I did was right. And I made the right choice. It was just like an instant knowing. I probably could have engaged that thing. And the scary part now is looking back on it and thinking, what would have happened if I had engaged it further, or if I just continued to sit there, would it have, played me like a puppet? Would it have, taken my soul? Who knows? It's just really strange to think about that.
And, the first few minutes of your account, people could say, it's just a big bird, a big owl, or an eagle, or a condor, I think you have in California. But, they don't wander in your house and, you can generally see them. But this thing was invisible, but you could sense it and you can hear it.
Absolutely, yeah. I even thought it was a big bird, but it wasn't until it was in the room and the way it came down the wall. Oddly enough, it sounded like it was crushing the wall, putting holes in it, and there was nothing there. Clearly I didn't see anything, but I could sense it. And I mean, it had weight, it had size, it was truly there. I wonder if I had waken up my wife, would it have disappeared, or would it have stayed there? Would she have been able to sense it or notice that it was there? I spent a long time questioning all of it, and it still comes up in my mind, and I question it. And then I think ultimately I made my choice, and I'm good with it, and it's okay. And I don't need to keep racking my brain about it. The other thing is that the whole time it never gave off a evil feeling about it. It was neutral. Like, there was no feeling. There was no happiness. I was excited, but I was very mellow and very even keel during the whole experience until that very last moment when it was in my face.
And it's difficult to know what to call it as well, what you can refer to it as. And you've had this experience now, and you've taken a path. You're going to church now, and I'm just wondering if it really matters anymore that what it was probably just a thing that was maybe sent to test you or put you on a particular path. And I just wonder if it really matters what it was now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it does. I think, like you said, it put me on a different path. And so what that was, like, it was a test, and, I passed the test in maybe a forward direction. I do go through periods and stretches. I was watching some kind of show and saw about things that come in to your room at night, and they sit on your chest, and they, the incubus and succubus. And there was like a depiction of one of them, and it had kind of portly, but muscular, had a round basketball shaped head, 3 claws on its toes. I saw that and I went, holy shit, that's probably what it was, And if you think about it, my wife and I weren't doing so hot. So maybe this thing was coming in there and taking our energy from both of us, or maybe just me. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's been a few things that have cropped up like that over the last few years where it kind of maybe makes a little bit more sense in my mind. I'm not sure if any of it is what it is, but I definitely know that there's things out there that we as human beings, we can't see it. We can sense it if you're open to it, but most of us aren't, I also feel like something's happening, like there's a change. And I know a lot of people that come on your show say similar things, but for me to have 3 things in 3 years come up and all these different coincidences and synchronicities cropping up all the time is just overwhelming sometimes, because I think, I'm getting all of this from just what's going on around me. And you guys, everybody's missing out on so much.
Introducing the High Strangeness Coffee Blend by Redacted Coffee Company, a medium roast of the Brazilian kind. This medium roast offers flavors of chocolate and vanilla combined with a distinct fruity taste and a unique sweet floral aroma. The experience of High Strangeness doesn't end there, with a sweet butter aftertaste that doesn't fade as your coffee cools. This coffee regains its flavors all the way through your cup, ensuring it truly is good to the last drop. The veteran-funded, employee-owned Redacted Coffee Company and UFO Chronicles Podcast have partnered together to bring you the best coffee on and off the planet. Get 20% off your first order now at redactedcoffee.com/UFO. That's redactedcoffee.com/UFO. Or follow the link below in this episode's description or click on the banner of my website. This podcast is fueled by coffee oozing high strangeness. So what are you waiting for? Wake up to the strange. And the feeling that you got, whether it's divine intervention, or an energy from somewhere, it's unusual, and it's definitely something which is characteristic of people which have been connected with something.
I can't believe I forgot to tell you this, but there's another piece to that divine intervention. 18, it was somewhere it was like after I had that feeling wash over me. So like in 18, I wasn't in the greatest shape physically. My body from racing dirt bikes my whole life is pretty hammered and beat, and my career now is really hard on the body. So I decided one day, my in-laws live near the ocean. I came over to their house one day and got on a stand-up paddleboard. And when I came back, I had this drive that I've never had in my life before. It was like somebody had a hand on my back and was pushing me forward. And I just decided I'm going to start paddleboarding, as much as I can. I was going 4 or 5 days a week. Around this time, COVID was getting ready to, do what it did here for us. I kept thinking, if I don't get stronger and healthier, it's going to kill me if I get sick. I don't think I was not in the greatest physical condition, and I wasn't strong and healthy like I should have been. So I started paddleboarding about 4 times a week, and I did this for a year. And around a year and a half I can't think of the year, but last year in July, I got COVID, and it hospitalized me. And the doctors told me that, one day in particular, if I don't get better, then they're going to intubate me. And I remember that particular day, I prayed and I just said, don't let me suffer. If you're going to take me, take me. Otherwise, let me go home. And the next day, they came into my room and said, hey, good news, you're doing better. And you're going to go home tomorrow. Not for a few months later, I see a specialist, which was maybe a month ago, a lung specialist. And he tells me, I go, hey, can you tell me just how sick I was? When I got home, I had no energy. I was on oxygen all day long for 3.5, 4 months. I'm 37 years old. I'm not really old. I'm not a smoker. I I mean, I don't drink hardly at all. I have 2 small kids. And so I asked him how sick I was. And he looked at x-rays of my lungs from when I was in the hospital on that day that I prayed. And he says, I can't explain to you why you're still alive. And he told me that 99% of the people that have the pneumonia from COVID that bad in their lungs don't survive. And right then when he said it, I knew exactly why I made it. So, yeah, I think the divine intervention is there. I think the hand of God is with me. And, maybe that's not Jesus, or maybe it is. I don't know who it is, but there's definitely a higher source of power that's orchestrating things and, giving us a nudge. Those times when you think, oh, should I go left or right? And you got something nagging at you to go right. That's probably him, or it, I should say, because I don't think something all powerful is a he or a she. It's an entity.
I think you're right. Yeah, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. You have to go with your gut. You have to listen.
Yeah.
You got to listen. That's wonderful, Chad.
Thank you, Nick.
And yeah, we'll put it out there, and we see if anyone's had anything similar. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you had this experience, and then you found a path. So it could all be wrapped up in that.
Absolutely.
And how would you feel now? I mean, your mindset is different. Is it you feeling a lot better? You're healthier?
Yeah. I'm right now. I'm still kind of going through a recovery. I have my lungs are tore up from the pneumonia, so I'm actually home and I'm not working. About a month after I was hospitalized, my father-in-law fell and broke his leg, and he's 76 years old. So it just happened to where I'm home and I can help him. He broke his femur. I've broken my femur twice. So I know what he's going through, and I've been able to be here with him to kind of help him through his recovery, which in turn is helping me with mine. I'm probably around 60%, maybe less, health-wise. But I still get out and paddleboard a couple times a week, not very far, but just to get my lungs working, because what I'm left with after having COVID is not nice. It's not fun. But I'm staying optimistic. I know that if I just put my head down and have faith, that I'll prevail. I'll be okay.
Yeah, and the good thing about the lungs is they do regenerate, don't they? They do make themselves new again.
Yeah,
it just takes time.
That's the unfortunate side, is that it's taken a long time so far.
Just keep on getting out there and getting that sea air paddleboarding.
Oh, doing my best, and I sure do love it.
Yeah, I live inland, so I don't ever really get to the beach because I love surfing, but it's a long way away from me. We usually do it in Southeast Asia, and so I love being at the beach.
It's not a bad place to be.
No, I know. Right, wonderful. Okay, Chad. So that's the other crazy thing is the egg and the globe were no more than 500 feet apart on the same stretch of road. And ironically, that road, if you were to take it north about, 2 miles, it dead ends into a naval base. So I don't know if any of that has anything to do with anything. The place where I had the being encounter, it was like 2 houses away from high tension power lines. So I know those are all things that crop up in all these kind of weird synchronicities and encounter stories. So, yeah. Catalina Island has seen its... Yes. Has had its fair few of sightings in that kind of area. So, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's all kind of surreal, and like I said, I keep listening to other episodes of yours, and I hear similarities between like the invisible part, but the different craft and stuff like that. But man, I just
it would be nice if somebody else shared the same thing as I shared. It just kind of, it's another thing that makes me think like, okay, well, why me and why that thing? But then I go back to thinking, well, it was for a reason, and I made the right choice, and so yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way of looking at it, because a lot of people say, I don't feel special from what happened. To a point, I suppose you can feel special, because sometimes these experiences are very unique, and also very unique to that person. It is also a privilege, I think, to some people, because I think it's best to have these experiences than live a life without them. Never been able to explore or experience the things which are in this world and shouldn't be. They shouldn't really be, but they are.
I agree. Yeah, it definitely, all this stuff happening has opened my eyes to a world that, we don't know anything about. I don't have social media. I have accounts, but I haven't been on them in years. I stopped. I had to get rid of all that because it was like as soon as I got away from, the distractions, and then I just started thinking more clearly and open-minded, and it was like the one thing after another just started popping up. Yeah, I don't feel special, but I feel privileged. I feel like it was a privilege to experience what I did. And I'm glad I did, because it changed me for the better.
That's a big plus. I'm in my mid-40s now, so obviously I know a time when there wasn't any social media.
Yeah.
I'd rather go back to those days. I mean, obviously I have social media for the show and that, but if I didn't have the show, I wouldn't be bothering with social media. It's junk, because all these people shouting and nobody's listening.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. My wife, I wouldn't say ingratiated by it, but she's well tucked in there, and I keep trying to throw her little hints like, hey, it's better on my side. Come on, get out of there. Slowly but surely, she's coming around. And I think also she's had a couple little things happen to her. Like one night she was dead ass asleep, and she woke up in a panic, and she grabbed me and she goes, Chad, did you just call my name? And I go, what? You just woke me up. No, you didn't. I didn't call your name. And she's like, somebody was right in my ear and screamed my name. And I was like, okay. It just so happens that I had a really strange feeling the night before, similar to the feeling I had when that thing was in my house. So I kind of maybe connected the dots and thought, well, maybe it was coming back, and maybe it was there for her, or maybe she was getting warned or something. Yeah. So I'm waiting for her to kind of turn the corner and say, okay. And I know all it would take is for her to see one thing like I have, and she would go, okay, I believe, So
yeah, I mean, she's had that happen. So, and sometimes your mind doesn't want to go there. It happened and that's it. Forget it.
And also I think there's a little bit of fear on her side too. I think she's scared of the unknown and maybe doesn't want to know.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. So probably deep down, she probably does believe you, but she doesn't want to kind of set it out like that.
I hope so. That's all I want. I don't want people to look at me and think, oh, he's crazy, like I'm just a normal guy, I'm helping my in-laws to get better and get healthy, I don't announce my sightings to people. I keep it to myself, and I know for a lot of folks that's hard, keeping it in. And I have to tell you, after hearing the first couple of your episodes and people saying that they felt so much better talking about it, so do I. It's like a weight being lifted off of me. I was so nervous to talk to you, and the whole buildup of like going back and forth with you, trying to set all this up. I didn't not want to do it, but I just kept thinking like, should I? Is this a good idea? And there's something driving me saying, no, do it. So that's another thing is usually when I have these feelings of like, hey, you got to do this, it's for a reason. And so I hope that somebody out there hears it and says, oh, that me too, and yeah, hopefully all this stuff is happening for a good reason, not for a bad one.
You know, these experiences and encounters, they happen to normal people. You know, they happen to normal people all over the world. And on the show, you know, even though they don't always mention, you know, what their profession is, they come from all walks of life, every profession, you name it. So, and these, like I said, these happen to normal people. I mean, fair enough, there is a stigma in films and TV where it's the local nutter, you know, with his half bottle of whiskey sitting on the street, spouting about aliens invading.
Yeah.
You know, but like I said, these happen to normal people, and being able to share it, you know, with a show like this where the listeners are like-minded, it is liberating, you know, because you're releasing it from yourself, you're putting it out there, and people are listening. And if people are struggling and going through problems in their life, it can be a beacon, you know, it can be a lighthouse to them to say, you know, you ain't crazy, you know, I've gone through this, you're going through this, there's friends and people out there.
Absolutely. That's why one part of it makes me feel like I'm supposed to be doing this. And maybe that's why. Maybe it's so that the next person says, okay, well, I'm not crazy, you know?
Even if it's just one person in about 5 years' time, which eventually hears the show, you know, that's one person. You know, if it helps one person, then that's the job. That's job done.
How long have you been doing this for?
So I started in, I think, 2018 when I first started the show.
Okay, I think I listened to one of your shows early on, and then I might have listened to the first few, so that gave it some time, and maybe I haven't come back until just this last year. So I just feel like I don't know, for some reason I'm pulled to the subject. It's got a hold of me. And I mean, I can't help but think like how you're providing a platform and people are able to share, and it's reaching so many more people from you being there, you know, and I just thank you. And I'm glad you're here and you're doing it and giving us a place to spill our dirty laundry.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, man.
Lots of the people that share on your show, they like how you just kind of stay out of it, let us talk. That's one of the things that drew me to your show is I don't have to listen to the guy behind the microphone saying whatever he says. I'm just listening to the person's story. And I mean, I hope that I was able to do a good enough job.
You did a great job, all right?
Thank you. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, you enjoy the rest of your day, Chad, all right? And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, buddy. That's all for this week. Keep updated and connected with the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you have an encounter that you'd like to share on the podcast, you can email me at ufochronicles@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me via the contact page on my website at ufochroniclespodcast.com. A big thank you to Chad for sharing tonight, and thank you all for listening. I will be back next week. Till then, stay safe and keep watching the skies. Goodbye.